Chapter 142, Fears, Esau's POV. Lord Cloelia had deposited Esau carefully on the chair, but then she hadn't left to stand guard outside as she usually did. "Do you mind if I wait for Jules and Thaddy in here with you?" she asked. Esau was getting used to Lord Thaddeus's habit of asking to do things. Lord Julia was more prone to explaining what she was about to do, but sometimes she asked permission as well. He knew that Lord Cloelia was their lover, but somehow he hadn't expected similar behaviors from such a powerful deity. "That's blasphemous! Lord Thaddeus and Lord Julia are powerful as well. Their smaller size doesn't mean anything. I'm equally helpless before all of them. I can't ever forget that, no matter how softly Lord Thaddeus speaks, or how carefully Lord Julia explains things to me, or how safe I sometimes dare to feel in their presence." Anyway, it hardly mattered. Who would expect a stupid fuckdoll to understand the ways of the gods? "Please do as you wish, my lord," he murmured, bowing his head. Lord Cloelia turned away from him, but instead of heading for the door, she settled on the cot at the opposite end of the room, reaching into her pocket and producing a small metal puzzle game. She began fidgeting with the puzzle, and Esau relaxed as her overpowering attention left him. He dared to close his eye. Surely it didn't count as ignoring the god if he kept listening for any indication that she wanted him? And he desperately needed to escape the flat, dizzying world just for a little while. The trouble was, with his eye closed, all he could see were the red letters carved into his thighs. I might as well get used to the idea. I'll be seeing it for the rest of my life. A permanent reminder of my purpose. The purpose I can't even fulfill anymore. Esau was so lost in unhappy thoughts, he didn't even notice the door opening until Lord Thaddeus and Lord Julia maneuvered awkwardly through it, supporting Lord Antony between them. Instantly, Esau's whole body tensed. "Hello, you two," Lord Thaddeus chirped. Esau stiffened further at his overly cheerful tone. Sure enough, a surreptitious glance showed that Lord Antony looked especially dour and unhappy. "Shit! I can't let him go to Hanyu like this. He's already upset. Who knows what he'll do?" "Where's Hanyu?" Lord Antony asked. "Oh no. No. He's already looking for him. This is so bad. What can I do? How can I fix this?" "Esau and I took him back to your rooms already," Lord Cloelia piped up, flinching at the sharp look Lord Julia shot her way. "That's a rather long walk," the healer god said. "How are you feeling, Esau?" "Your servant is well, my lord. Lord Cloelia lowered herself to carry me back." "What can I say to make Lord Antony think well of Hanyu?" "I'm sure Hanyu would have stayed where he was put, my lord, but he was so eager to prepare your rooms. He just wants to please you, my lord." The god's reaction to his words were confusing. Lord Thaddeus stared at the ground, seemingly repressing a grin, while Lord Julia released a loud snicker. "Oh, I think Hanyu has him pretty well pleased," she chortled. Lord Antony's scowl deepened, and Esau trembled. Oh no, even the suggestion that he might be pleased with Hanyu is pissing him off. Shit, what can I do? "Well then, I might as well head back too," the god said. No, I'm sure I'll think of something. I just need more time." "I'll take you," Lord Julia said. She hoisted the smaller god up and opened the door, and just like that, Esau's last chance to help Hanyu slipped through his shaking fingers. "Idiot! Useless, stupid, tongue-tied fool! Fuckdoll might have been too generous. Why wasn't I thinking of things to say while I waited? How could I have gotten so caught up in thinking about my own injuries? Who knows what will happen to Hanyu now? All because I wasted my chance to help make our master feel kindly disposed towards him." Esau had always hated individual lessons when he and Hanyu would be taken to different places and there would be nothing he could do to help his friend. Ever since he could remember, one of his worst fears had been that Hanyu would be sold. Maybe that was selfish. A human master would probably be more forgiving of Hanyu's eccentricities than the gods. His temple training would set him apart, and he would be sure to stand out, no matter how many other slaves were in the household. But if that happened, then Esau would sail away with the gods, and Hanyu would stay in the city, and they would never see each other again. The thought had always petrified Esau, and he had cried himself to sleep more than once after the days when the priests threatened to sell Hanyu, swearing to himself that he would never let it happen. On the days when they worked with their teachers individually, Esau was always quietly terrified until he saw his friend again. He'd even had nightmares about it, waking up gasping and covered in sweat, listening desperately for the sound of Hanyu's snores and muttering. Since coming aboard the ship, his nightmares had changed. And now Hanyu would be experiencing that, the sort of things that haunted Esau's dreams, and just like at the temple, he was helpless to stop any of it. Hanyu was probably still preparing himself. Esau hoped he would do a thorough job. Lord Julia had that wonderful healing salve she'd given him. Would she give some to Hanyu if the injuries were bad enough? Could Esau ask for that? He would. Lord Julia seemed to favor him. He would plead with her until she agreed to give him one of those little jars. They were so small, Hanyu could probably hide it, and maybe since he was so favored, he wouldn't even have to. Maybe their master would allow him the healing balm. Maybe Esau could beg and offer himself for punishment and earn that permission too. Maybe... Esau? Lord Thaddeus's soft, meek voice shook him from his dark thoughts. Are you sure you're all right? I'm so sorry, Lord Cloelia burst out, still from the other side of the room. I wasn't thinking. I swear I didn't mean any harm, Esau. Esau barely restrained a flinch at the loudness of her voice and the reminder of how ungrateful he'd been when she permitted him to leave the infirmary. My lord owes her servant no apologies. The door opened as Lord Julia returned. Already? How long had Esau been lost in his thoughts? This means he's alone with Hanyu now. Oh, fuck, it started. Oh no, it's too late. There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry I took Esau out, Lord Cloelia cried as soon as she saw her lover, putting down her puzzle and shooting to her feet. Esau did his best not to cower at her voice and sudden movement, but Lord Thaddeus gave him a concerned glance, and he doubted he'd succeeded. It wasn't what I would have suggested, Lord Julia said sternly, making the bigger god wilt. But that's my own fault for not keeping everyone abreast of Esau's recovery. Just so the four of us are on the same page going forward, I don't want you climbing any more stairs for at least 3 days. We can do more walking around. I can see how you'd be getting a little stir-crazy, but nothing as far away as Antony's room. Understood? Everyone agreed meekly. Esau was a little surprised to hear that Lord Thaddeus and Lord Cloelia sounded just as small and humble as he did. Do you think he'll be able to get above deck by... Lord Thaddeus winced. Sorry, Esau, I don't mean to ask about you like you're not here, but 5 days? Will it be enough time? 5 days? What's happening in 5 days? Lord Cloelia asked, and for once Esau was grateful to hear her thunderclap of a voice. She echoed his own question exactly. Lord Julia settled into the seat across the little card table from Esau, and he was careful to keep his eyes respectfully downcast. Now that he was getting stronger, he couldn't count on her strange kindness to continue. It would be especially important not to anger her right before she turned him back over to an already irate master. If Lord Antony heard that his useless whip-meat slave had caused offense to his valued friend, the consequences were sure to be dire. That's the day Antony has set for our assembly, Lord Julius said. He's going to get everyone together on the upper deck to explain what happened with Marcus and name Theo as his new second. Why would I need to be present for something like that? I could understand if Lord Antony wanted his first slave there as decoration, but he can't possibly want me to show my face in public. I'll be lucky if he keeps letting me leave his rooms for exercises. My appearance can only be a disgrace to my master. Sal? Lord Thaddeus took the chair next to him and leaned forward, his voice even meeker than usual. Antony promised me a boon before, and if it's all right with you, if it's still what you want, I'm going to approach him at the assembly and ask for you. Ask for me to do what? And even more strange, why would he need my permission? Why does he always ask for my permission? Sal fumbled, unsure what response was proper for such a strange statement, and Lord Thaddeus began chattering nervously, kicking up a light breeze as he flapped his hands. Of course it's fine if you changed your mind, he cried. I completely understand. If you don't want to live with me anymore, just say the word and I won't bring it up. Thaddy, Lord Cloelia cooed, gently chiding. Come on, who wouldn't want to live with you? Live with? He can't possibly mean it. He can't be offering me this again. He knows. My lord, as Sal managed to choke out. Of course it would be an honor and a pleasure to be yours. But please, my lord, you didn't have all the information when you made that generous offer. I never expected. Please don't feel obligated. He shut his jaw tightly. What was he saying? Of course a god wouldn't feel any obligation to fulfill a promise made to a human slave, even if there weren't extenuating circumstances. Lord Thaddeus spoke again, tentative but gentle. Is this because of your blood? I can be of no possible use to you, my lord, Sal whispered, folding his own hands in his lap, under the table, where no one could see them tremble. How many times is this beautiful dream going to be dangled in front of me, while I become less and less deserving of it every time? Is it a punishment to show me how far I've fallen? Sal, that doesn't make any difference to me, Lord Thaddeus insisted. But, careful, offerings mustn't argue with the gods. If your unworthy servant were to take my lord's spare room, there would be no space for an offering who could be used for feeding and pleasure. I've been drinking in the barracks since Dido moved out, the small god replied. It's no trouble to keep going there. My lord, I have no way to repay such generosity. Sal's panic was starting to show in his voice. He could hear it getting tighter, shriller, and there was no way to stamp down the inexcusable tone. I would be nothing but a burden. Lord Thaddeus seemed to grow calmer and firmer as Sal's nerves shattered. You are not a burden. I've told you before. I'm not asking for anything in exchange for the space. Oh dear, no. It would be a pleasure to have you living with me. Just knowing that I was able to give you something useful, even if it's only a bed, would be a pure delight. But why? The words seemed to tear out of his throat, raw and wretched. I can't feed you. I can't serve you in bed. I'm not even pleasing to look at. I'm just a worthless, broken fuck doll. And... a sow! Lord Thaddeus's wounded yelp cut him off mid-rant. You are not! How could he reply to that? He'd already come too close to arguing with the god. Sal slumped miserably until Lord Julia's voice sliced through his panic. What did you call yourself? She asked, low and intense, and all at once Sal realized his mistake. Shit! He bowed his head lower over the table, as low as he could manage. Your servant said, "Fuck doll, my lord," he whispered, cringing. I thought so. Even with his head bowed, Esau could feel her sharp gaze on him. Any particular reason for that choice of extremely untrue words? Please, my lord. His voice was only a terrified whimper. How could I have been so stupid? Now she knows I went rummaging and fucked up her bandages. She's gone to all this trouble to help me heal, and this is how I repay her? Is that a favorite insult of Marcus's? The god asked calmly. Sometimes my former master did refer to your servant that way, Esau admitted, resulting in another gasp from Lord Thaddeus. I see. Lord Julia's voice was still level, but Esau knew better than to assume that meant she wasn't furious with him. And it came to your mind just now because... Esau crumpled even lower. Please forgive your stupid servant, my lord. It wasn't my intention to tamper with the bandages or disrespect your generosity in caring for me. What am I doing? Excuses, explanations, begging forgiveness before I've been punished. Lord Antony has spoiled me as badly as Hanyu. He didn't dare think any more about Lord Antony and Hanyu, not right now. He was in plenty of trouble of his own. Lord Julia sighed deeply. Yes, so, you saw. Yes, my lord, Esau quavered. Your servant has no excuse. Please inform my master of my transgression so that I can be appropriately punished. Esau, of course you're not going to be punished for this, the god soothed. I wouldn't... What's going on? Lord Cloelia asked. It was a small mercy that she'd stayed on her side of the room. None of your business, Lord Julia snapped. Then, after a moment, she spoke more gently. Shit, I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's my fault for saying anything in front of you. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry to you too, Esau. I compromised your privacy. There is no need for my lord to apologize, he whispered, trembling harder than ever. He should have left it at that. No one had ordered him to speak, and no one needed his permission to know what was cut into his thighs. But Lord Thaddeus kept offering Esau that quiet little room with the door that shut, and Esau was exhausted from pretending he didn't want it, and want it fiercely. If he revealed this last degradation, this last bit of unworthiness, and the god still didn't change his mind, then maybe he could finally... Lord Marcus carved words into my thighs, he said, horrified to hear an almost defiant note in his voice as he spoke without permission. Gods, what would the priest say? A reminder of my place, my former place. I could not aspire to the honor of such usage now. Fuck doll, Lord Cloelia whispered. She sounded horrified as well, and Esau cowered. Of course the gods would be offended by such unruly behavior. What had he been thinking? He was going to be punished for sure, no matter what Lord Julia said. Is that what he wrote? Esau didn't dare open his mouth again, but nodded. That bastard! The big god's voice came out as a snarl, and Esau barely clenched his teeth over a terrified whimper. Fucking evil bastard! Fucking thinks he can just ought to rip off his skin to make a net and leave him out in the sun, ought to... Cloelia, that's enough. Lord Julia's voice was cool and authoritative, and Esau had the childish urge to hide behind her, as if that would avert Lord Cloelia's wrath. You won't hurt Marcus with your temper. Take it outside, please. Sorry. Heavy feet stamped towards the door. But Esau, you say the word, and as soon as we can, we'll cover those words up with tattoos. Big ones. The door shut, and Esau thought he might collapse into a puddle of relief. She's gone. I'm not going to be punished. Not yet. Angry gods, punishment. Oh, Hanyu, I'm being coddled and forgiven for my mistakes. What are you going through right now?